Hey guys, what's up? What's going on? It's your boy Mike again, back by popular demand because Joe sucks. No, I'm only kidding. We're just gonna rotate things from here on out to keep it real funky fresh. And speaking of funky fresh, our Facebook group. We've got one and you should join it. How many fingers am I holding up? The Facebook group. It's a place to share movie trailers, movie news, movie memes, anything movie or even TV related. So you should get on that. And merch, it's still available at our web store, howmanyfingerspodcast.bigcartel.com. We've got t-shirts, koozies, stickers, and all three in a package deal for $11.99. That's like clearance rack cheap, and it's the absolute best way to support the podcast financially. But if you're short on cash, and I know I am, just share an episode with a friend, or share this episode even. You can rate and review us on iTunes also to help us get our metrics up. It all goes a long way as well, and it's totally free. Anyway, check out a review of Crazy Rich Asians with comedian Ross Wiseman last week, and a review of Spike Lee's Black Klansman with photographer Jordan Weinrich next week. This week, we're reviewing The Nun with author Michael Deagler, just in time for the spooky fall season. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Mike.
And you're listening to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? The podcast. And this week we'll be reviewing The Nun.
As in, none of it makes any sense at all. Welcome to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? Featuring two guys getting Reese's Puffs for breakfasted and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
Breakfasted. And that came to us from Mac Krause. Thank you, Mac.
Thanks, Mac. If you have any further synonym suggestions, you can suggest those on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Tumblr, email, Gmail. It's all there at your disposal. We'd love to hear from you. But let us delay no further. Joe, do you want to tell us who is betwixt us?
I would love to.
Tell us who's betwixt us?
I would love to. He hasn't been here in a while. I've been trying to get him on here, and you just came back from a big trip. It's Michael Deagler.
Hey, guys.
DJ Dougie
The weary traveler.
Yes. I'm trying to think of when was the last time we had you on. Was that
Manchester by the Sea, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. We also... What was the other one? Midnight
Special.
Midnight Special.
Yes.
And I think, was that it?
Yeah, this is the
This
third
is
time it's been
episode.
on,
I think so, yeah.
Okay, well, welcome back.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be doing a creepy film. The Halloween season is almost upon us. Right. It's like a very dreary day out.
This will, come out, around... end of September, in September. Yeah,
That's fine.
It's about to get spooky.
Hey, the displays are up in the grocery store.
They are, yeah.
You know? I'm down for it.
It's Halloween as far as capitalism's concerned.
But you're not only back on the podcast, you're back in the country. We were just talking about that off camera.
Yeah, I was in Ireland for 3 months.
3 months.
Birthplace of maybe the grandfather or great-grandfather of the film that we watched today, Bram Stoker.
Oh.
Creator of Dracula.
Okay.
He's from Dublin, and there are a bunch of Bram Stokery things in Dublin.
Mm-hmm.
The neighborhood I was staying in, Clontarf,
Okay.
that was the neighborhood he grew up in, and
That's a nice name.
yeah, Clontarf.
It's like a sci-fi name. From the planet Clontarf.
Clontarf, yes. I think the house that he grew up in might still be there. I forgot to figure that out. But as you go around Dublin,
Right.
Because anywhere, somebody's from, they try and claim him and explain him,
Oh, yeah.
So if you go around Dublin, people are always telling you how, this or that really influenced Dracula, Dublin Castle, which is kind of like their, the main center of city government for centuries. He used to work there in the tax collecting office, so people will tell you that, him coming out of the building and seeing the sort of medieval tower of of Dublin Castle was sort of the inspiration for Dracula's castle
or Transylvania.
Well, I think they also insist that Dracula, the name, is an Irish name, and like it comes from like apparently in Irish Gaelic there's like some phrase like Dracula, or that means like dark one or something like that.
Okay.
And that's definitely not true. Like Dracula's.
I thought I was learning something.
Dracula's named after Vlad Dracul, Vlad the Impaler. But the Irish are really insisting that, and Bram Stoker, he was of recent English ancestry. He grew up in sort of an educated Protestant family in Victorian Dublin. He probably did not really have any exposure to the Irish language. I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
But they get points for making the connection, I think.
For trying.
And then there is one place
trying to claim it. Yeah.
There's one place in Dublin that I recommend anybody go to if they're there. It's called St. Michan's, and it's this church. It's kind of off by itself. It's not really near the other famous things in Dublin. And the current church is only a couple hundred years old, but there's been a church there since Viking times.
Right.
And there's a very old vault, a burial vault beneath the church that you can go in, and you go through like this creepy like storm door thing, and you climb down, and it's this long dank passageway with like there's vaults on either side, and some of them are lit and you can see inside. There's like coffins stacked there, and it's very creepy. And some of them aren't lit, and that's even creepier because you can't really see what's there. There's more coffins. But then at the very
used coffins,
people are buried in the vault, and at the end of the hallway in the last vault, and this is kind of why this church is famous. There are 3 what they call unintended mummies that are they don't know, they're still unsure as to why these people were mummified, but something about the conditions of this vault, the air and the stone,
great band name, by the way,
and
Unintended
the unintended mummies, yeah. But they've been there. They're like 400 or 500 years old,
right?
And they, but Bram Stoker, he had family that went to that church and are buried in the churchyard. So he, as a child, was definitely like, he would have been to funerals there. He would have been in the vault and seen the mummies,
right,
which were very famous at the time, and they're like creepy as fuck. It's very like it's worth seeing.
So what is an unintended mummy?
They're mummies, so they're preserved. But they weren't mummified through like traditional processes.
Right. It's just the environment down there that's preserved them?
Yeah. Okay. But they're not quite sure why. But
that's spooky.
But yeah,
it's too spook.
But that was the one thing that I saw where it's like, okay, this is definitely like, you could see how this might lead to Dracula.
Background, yeah.
Right.
But the mummies, there's 3 of them. One's called the Crusader, one's called the Thief, and I'm gonna bring it back to the current topic.
Oh man,
the third is called the Nun.
Oh man,
right?
So when I presented to you like the movies that we were doing, did this have anything to do with it? Did this whole story?
And the third mummy was called the Black Klansman.
It was called Crazy Rich Asians. Very peculiar name for a mummy.
That sounds awesome, though.
Yeah, it does. It almost sounds like the third act of this movie in the catacombs and everything.
Oh yeah. I was in. Yeah, there's lots of creepy old buildings there. Not as many nuns as in times past. There's sort of a decline in nuns throughout the world.
Right.
But actually, in Galway, there's an island in the River Corrib called Nuns Island, and there's still an active convent there. But
I was about to jokingly ask, is it called Nun Island?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Okay. And it's a pleasant building, though. It's not as nearly as creepy as the nunnery in this film.
What is it about nuns that are so creepy? They
don't have sex. That's scary, man.
A woman I can't have sex with! Oh man. Oh jeez.
Anyway, I don't think we said this so far in his intro, but Michael Deagler is, of course, an author, a published author, and you can check out links to his work on michaeldeagler.com.
Yeah, thank you.
Deagler.
Yes.
Are there any new developments in the writing world? I know you were just
I think
You just had
you were midway
vacation.
through because you did that fellowship, right? And I think you were in the middle of that when we did
Yeah.
Manchester.
Oh yeah,
how did
maybe
that
you're
turn
visiting. Yeah,
That was great. It was great.
It's like 2 years ago.
A lot of the fellows that I was there with have gone on to very impressive things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just
You're here
keeping
reviewing
on,
The
keeping
Nun.
on. I had a story out this summer in the literary journal Story Quarterly. Mm-hmm. If anyone wants to track that down, it's a story about the mummers of South Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. It's
the unintentional mummers.
it's
There's a couple mummers down there. Pretty spooky.
They weren't meant to be mummers.
You don't understand.
Philadelphia's
These aren't intentional mummers.
Philadelphia's just preserved their bodies as mummers. Every January 1st, they're out there walking the streets of Philadelphia. They never intended this.
that's really
What are
funny.
the actual mummers?
The mummers are they're like the parade people in Philadelphia. Isn't it after New Year's?
It's on New Year's Day. It's similar to Mardi Gras, but much sort of whiter and
yeah.
a little,
If you
lower
Google
rent.
mummers right now, those listening at home,
It's an old
Google
tradition. It's
image
controversial for a number of reasons.
Yes.
I get into it in the
Check
short
out,
story.
what's that story called?
It's called Ivan Among the Two Street String Bands.
All right, check that out for more on the mummers.
Story Quarterly. Yeah.
Anyway, this week we are drinking Cider Boys again. Peach County Apple Peach Hard Cider,
the mummer boys are.
aka leftovers from Michael's road trip. This bad boy open. I haven't actually had these ones yet.
It's
Personally,
very sour, very sweet.
like a Sour Patch Kid.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it's cidery.
Not bad.
It's got a little peach in there. It's like juice.
Those Cider Boys, they did it again. Oh boy! All right, you have the notes for this one, Joe.
I do.
Let's get into the Nun. I'll give you boys the IMDb description. A priest with a haunted past and a novice on the threshold of her final vows are sent by the Vatican to investigate the death of a young nun in Romania and confront a malevolent force in the form of a demonic nun.
That's there's no comma or anything in that sentence.
Just keeps on pushing through.
It's about like 30 words strong that I'm looking at it right now.
I think the priest with a haunted past is generous because the film barely gives that much attention to that past.
Right, yeah. So yeah, sorry. I think Ross, our Crazy Rich Asians guest, is approaching the house, so we might want to pause this real quick. And
Joe's going to give us our notes about the Nun in 3, 2, 1.
all right, so I didn't.
Wow, seamless.
There was a lot of forethought that went into that, and I really whiffed. I really blew it, didn't I? It's hard to explain my Joe notes just because I didn't know I was having notes on these, but I have wrote a lot about kind of.
The thing about my notes is they're not there per se.
So The Nun is directed by Corin Hardy. Corin has directed some shorts, some music videos. And he did a feature-length film. It was called The Hollow. I'm not totally familiar with what that is. I guess this is his second film.
Seems like it.
Yeah, it's written by Gary Duberman, who has most famously written Annabelle Creation, also from the Conjuring franchise. He also wrote It, the new It, and he's also going to be writing It Chapter 2.
Or rather, did he work with Cary Fukunaga on the original, or he did like the rewrite where they switched it all up on it?
I think he did the rewrite. I don't know. It just says screenplay by.
Well, because I mean, there was the writing duo, right, of Cary and someone else that did the
Cary
first
and
one.
Chase, and then I think he came on and changed, or just reworked it for the studio, and then I think he's just doing It Chapter 2 by his lonesome.
Oh, poor guy.
But anyway, yeah. So horror seems to be everybody's thing here. Anyway, basically, what else do we have? Obviously, the story is by Peter Safran and James Wan or whatever, inspired by, and they produced it, and because they're kind of in charge of this whole Conjuring franchise and everything. It's starring Demian Bashir, Tessa Farmiga, and Jonas Bloquet. Man, I'm fucking off since we came back. I don't know what's... Anyway, let me just jump into like me talking about The Conjuring as a whole. I mean, this was... I think we were kind of at like a crossroads of like whether to do... We knew we were going to do Black Klansman, Crazy Rich Asians, in this kind of thing, but we didn't know whether we're going to do this or the Happy Time Murders.
Yeah.
And I think, again, because sometimes, like, as a tiebreaker, I'll kind of be like, whoever's kind of, like, curating these episodes or hosting them, kind of, will just kind of have final say. And so I put my fist down. I was like, I think we're going to do The Nun just because I didn't look them up. But I do remember we had multiple people, I think, have been like, why didn't you review Annabelle Creation or whatever the last one was? And I was like, we really don't know that much about like the Conjuring franchise, or it's actually called the Conjuring Universe now. There's like a whole graphic and everything. But I don't know if either of you guys have seen it, but the original Conjuring is pretty great. I think it'll be remembered as like one of like the great horror films of its era. However, because of its like clout and it's like the current state of horror movies and just movies in general, they have spun it off into like 6.
Because there's The Conjuring, The Conjuring 2.
Yeah, there's 2 Conjuring movies. There's 2 Annabelle movies.
And then Annabelle Creation.
Yeah, and then now there's this, and then I know, TBA, or like probably the next 2 years, there's going to be like Conjuring 3, untitled Annabelle film. There's something after, like the year after that, that's called The Crooked Man.
Because I haven't seen The Conjuring, but The Conjuring is like to loosely describe, it's like a House of Horrors type thing. Like there's just a billion different like enemies, I guess, or villains in like that are scaring you in that movie. Again, I haven't seen it, but it's like
I saw The Conjuring.
They own like a museum or something with a bunch of cursed stuff, or
it's been a while.
I keep trying to figure out like how does The Nun fit into
I thought it was just
Annabelle and all this other stuff.
Well, I know how The Nun fits into it, but if you want to give your...
I don't remember The Conjuring too well, but I thought it was kind of reined in. Like it was a pretty straightforward like haunted house, like
but The Nun
Amityville type thing.
Annabelle is in the house. Yeah, I think The Conjuring at its core is really just like demon haunting family story. And then you also have like this investigative kind of aspect to it and everything. I was looking it up. Again, I didn't see past The Conjuring. This is my first,
Oh, okay.
But The Conjuring 2, apparently like one of the most iconic scenes, and I think it was like even an afterthought or something, but one of the investigators is like in one of the rooms of the house. And I watched it on YouTube. I forget, I wrote it down. Like if somebody wants to, like, if you're listening, you want to Google this, it's like a pretty good watch. Just type in the demon nun scene on YouTube. It's just like very horrifying considering it's just like what is her last name?
Vera Farmiga.
Oh yeah, Vera Farmiga. It's literally her in a room, and then like the lights go out, and then there's just no special effects or anything. It's just like a painting of that nun like in the background. And I know that doesn't sound very scary, but it's just like so naturally unsettling kind of. And eventually like later in the movie, I guess like the nun comes out of the picture, but this is just kind of like, oh, we're going to take that character because that's such like an iconic scene from this movie and thrust it into... I don't think The Conjuring takes itself very seriously, kind of. It's just kind of like, well, let's market, like, to like what... Like, oh man, like they're making a movie about the nun, like from that one scene. Yeah, And I think Annabelle is along the lines of something similar to that. But I can't blame them. these are some of the most profitable movies of like all time. For example, like I think Annabelle had as low of a budget as like $6.5 million, and all of these movies gross at least $300 million.
Whoa, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's crazy.
When it's all said and done, yeah.
Yeah. They're always the top earners in their horror genre of every year.
Annabelle's about a doll, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
Dolls are not like my favorite horror movie.
I've heard the first
Villain.
Annabelle is like terrible,
Uh-huh.
but then they just did a sequel last year, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's pretty good." It's called
really?
like Annabelle Creation or something. I personally don't have, like in retrospect, or just like I don't want to go back and revisit it. Really, sorry guys. Like somebody left a comment on our SoundCloud a while ago. It's like, you guys should like revisit all the Conjuring films and like then like watch Annabelle Creation. I was like, oh, sorry, we're reviewing another movie instead. But I this is a corner of what's happening in modern film in a genre, and it's making a lot of money and it's very successful. I went opening night and people are fucking like sold out, packed. People are ready for like a Conjuring movie, and I was just like, I don't know much about this, and I think that's why I wanted to do this movie.
Yeah, I feel like I heard buzz around this before it came out, and I guess that's what it was. Like it was just like another,
It's great.
like the whole like Conjuring fan base or whatever.
It's wonderful word of mouth marketing. The trailer for this is not good. There's no besides like it's just called The Nun, but they like slap kind of like that Conjuring like label on it, and people are there for it. What about you? Do you have any? What was it like for you going into this movie? Or
It was a pretty mean, theater. I mean, we didn't really have trouble finding a seat. I know I wasn't expecting it. I think I was just kind of unfamiliar with the Conjuring universe and how much people actually like it. I thought it was just one of those like schlocky kind of crappy horror genres and series that like they're just kind of it made it an okay amount of money, so they kept making them. I didn't realize that people like actually were fans of the Conjuring universe and like followed it.
There's conjurers.
Enough to line up for this one. So at one point I was arguing for Happy Time Murders because I was like, it's not going to do great, but what else is out there?
Right.
And then this I think is going to be number one this weekend when all is said is done.
Yeah.
I mean, the real test will be how it does like next weekend, because horror movies
Against Predator.
Well, horror movies do okay, and then the second weekend they usually have the biggest drop off of any of the genres.
Right. Well,
because everyone goes to see it, and then either it's bad, which most horror movies are,
Right.
and everyone's like, "Oh, don't go see it; it was awful," and then nobody goes to see it.
But they also like kind of keep them around in the theaters until Halloween, and I think that's why they like drop these movies late August, beginning of September, and then let it, kind of just play out until Halloween. I think that's where
I'd be surprised if this was around until Halloween.
Right?
Honestly, because the reviews are not good. We'll get into it. But.
Oh no, but I mean, neither was Annabelle though. Reviews were even worse for like Annabelle. So I don't know. It's just, and I think like I saw like a lot of comments, and people are just kind of like, I don't care how crappy this movie is, I'm gonna go see. I think there's something like there's like a roller coaster appeal to this movie, where we'll get into it, but the jump scares aren't even really that great.
There's something in it that like taps into the same kind of like the doll kind of archetype of like Annabelle. People I think are gonna go see that.
Right.
Because dolls creep a lot of people out. I feel like there's an untapped market that this might be realizing of like
the nun market.
Nuns, right? Like I feel like there's like dolls, there's like clowns. If you made a clown movie, it creeps enough people out that people are gonna be tagging their friends who are afraid of clowns. I mean, like,
yeah, I agree. That was kind of because I didn't even realize that this was a Conjuring thing initially. But I think just like the nuns are surprisingly scary. I feel like there aren't a lot of nun movies, or I can't think of another one. The silhouette of a nun is like pretty creepy. It's like very ghostly.
It plays that like hooded figure type thing.
And it just seems like, a nun is not that far from a witch, like in just terms of like
it's a very
describe these two people. And so I was like excited about that. I guess I thought this was going to be a little like artsier, maybe like more like The Witch.
Right. Yes.
But yeah, I was just the prospect of like there's a horror movie called The Nun. It's about an evil nun. Like, that's that's appealing to me in a way that the like Annabelle or or even The Conjuring might not be necessarily.
It's a little. I guess maybe that specific part of it helps it. It's not just some random demon haunting a house. It's the nun. She looks like this. Like they show her in the trailers. And I feel like that did help get people into the seats.
Yeah, she's
really
a creepy
out.
nun.
She's the
It's
poster.
It's not like most trailers where they're like, oh, there's that thing and it like scurries down the hallway. You don't know what it really looks like. Come to the movie to find out. Like this, they show it in the trailer. It is on the poster. It's the top half of her head, and it's like, are you creeped out by this? You'll be creeped out by the movie.
Right.
I think that kind of worked.
So again, I'm not super familiar with the Conjuring universe, but this feels like kind of really outside the realm of what they've done before, because it's like 1952 Romania, and it's kind of like,
is the first Conjuring a period piece, or
I think it's like the 70s.
Yeah.
Because the Warrens are like real people.
Yeah,
Right. It's like events that actually happened in like the set. Well, looks like they were
based on a true story.
there were people investigating
That's
paranormal
actually
activity
what I really.
in the 70s.
The thing that I disliked the most about The Conjuring was how reverential it is towards the Warrens, who were basically con artists. But not even like, even if you believe in ghosts or whatever, there's still like certainly like these little weird, like ugly Catholic people. They weren't like you know, Patrick Wilson and
yes,
they picked like very beautiful people, and then they don't even.
We're here to investigate your house.
They don't even have the normal
She's a
flaws
babe.
that like people, even in horror movie characters, like are generally a little more complex than these two. You know,
definitely
the Warrens as portrayed in this series.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess 19, I don't know. This might be like the farthest we've kind of gone back though. Like, and again, it's foreign too, because it's just kind of like we're in Romania, or like the events that are happening in our
Romania with no actual Romanians.
Yeah, they really found a way to not have
they
to.
really have to like pull people from all corners of the earth to be like, all right, how do we get people in here who all speak English? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
They're
I
all
don't know,
North
I don't-
Americans. Because it's like a Mexican guy,
French Canadian.
a French Canadian,
Yeah, French Canadian.
I don't know. Is that like the writer being like, I want to put it in Romania, but I don't know anything about Romania or what those people are like or what they talk like. So let's put an American, a Mexican, and a French Canadian in there.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
it's a pretty landscape. Did they film it in Romania? Is that in your notes?
It's not, but I'm sure I could look it up.
Seems like a place that would be cheap to film in.
They did. Principal photography started May 3rd, 2017.
Transylvania is in Romania, so Romania is kind of just sort of an OG creepy place.
Yeah, I think that was the reason for wanting to put it there. I just don't know why you wouldn't like include some actual Romanian people in that setting. Like,
Yeah, even the scene where Frenchie's like back at the bar with like the townsfolk.
You can tell that's just like, I mean, obviously it's on a set, but, you know, like,
Those people,
but it's in like a studio space somewhere. and
the
it's-
little
they're
bit players they don't do a great job, but they also aren't. Yeah, they aren't as like, I don't know, creepy Romanian people as you want them to
This
be.
movie
Yeah, there's
seems
like-
like it should be like lower budget than it actually is, but it's like a $22 million budget, which is still small. But you'd think like, I don't know. Sometimes this movie seems like, well, we found a creepy castle, we can film that, and I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of everything went into special effects and so on and so forth.
yeah.
there's this movie that I saw like 2 years ago called They're Watching, and it's basically like house hunters, but they go to like Romania. It's like it's filmed like it's a
okay,
device so
I've
that they
heard
can
of
film
this.
it like
Right, yeah.
you know, like a mockumentary or whatever. But they're in like Romania during it, and they like it has the worst ending of all time. It devolves like below a B movie, in the
Right.
end. Whereas it's like real and like gritty for the first like hour and a half of it. But they're in Romania and they do like a really good job of like making the townspeople be really creepy, because that's kind of the whole thing. Is like there are these Americans here filming the show, and everywhere they go, people are just kind of like staring at them, and like if you say like certain words, like everyone in like the bar like shuts down and stops talking. And I was like looking for something of that.
Yeah, that's what you
this
want.
movie, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure Romania is nothing like this, and a whole lot more like that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's a real depiction of Romania.
Oh, right. Well, it's
for the setting of a horror movie. that's what you
Superstitious
want.
peasants
closer to that.
who will spit on the ground if you mention a whole series of words.
This is a really hard plot to follow too. This is kind of like I don't know. It's by the time I get to the end, I'm just like, well, what was happening, kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's kind of almost devoid of like a story, almost too.
it's missing a lot of things.
There's a lot of elements that are.
I don't
missing,
think it knows what it wants to really be in terms of like tone.
Yeah.
I think that's my big problem is like tone, and then just like some of the character arcs are either they didn't try to finish them or they thought they finished them and just completely left a lot on the table. But like you start out almost in like a B movie type, like it's like, you know, they're like the two nuns walking around I guess it's a convent or a monastery or whatever. And like it was just so cheesy. Like they go to a door that says God dies here or God
ends here.
God ends here.
I love that shit though. I was into that.
Why are nuns like writing that in like creepy like carved? I mean, I guess
that's from like the
But the church presumably would have put that there, right? Or after they reclaimed it?
Yeah,
or are they saying
I guess so.
That's there from like the pagan people who are worshiping
because
before the church gets there?
Because we even have like a flashback to like Dark Ages.
It just seems weird that like you would have this place that's a holy place, and like even if that was there from the Dark Ages, wouldn't the nuns be like, God is forever or something? Like, why would you leave something that's like blaspheming essentially God written there?
Well, I think it goes into the territory of religion where it's kind of like, you know, there's, you know, God and the devil, and they're like really, I mean, these are people who are praying every moment of the day to keep like evil at bay, kind of. Yeah. So I can see that. I mean, I like that. I was like into that.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
And
there are a lot of things in this movie that are cool, and a lot of things in it that are like sort of cool.
I was about to say,
like I don't know.
The best part of this movie is the imagery. There's like if you could cut all like the main characters out of this and keep like some of like this like really fascinating imagery and all these shots, like I don't know how to describe it besides it's like almost like fucking like metal kind of. It's just fucking like upside down crosses and like a nun who hangs herself and then fucking explodes in the blood, and it's very like that's kind of like all really well done. Like they know what makes this, like they don't know how to fit this imagery into a story per se, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think so many kind of like haunted house movies or exorcism movies that are set in America,
right?
You have to kind of, it's like hard to like have like a real evil backstory because like the history isn't there as much, and it's just like a colonial townhouse on like a suburban street or something, you know. So like you could see them stretching their legs where it's like, okay, we're gonna go back into like this super you know, traditional horror movie kind of atmosphere, and and yeah, like the premise of like a convent of nuns like dealing with this sort of interior evil, I think is like, you know,
it is kind of cool, guarding a gateway to evil. Again, you can't really throw stones at it, but I just seeing that like imagery and there's like nuns there, like that just seems like that they don't go together. Like, you know, at the very least, just pull that sign off, even if that is the doorway to like hell or whatever they're guarding.
Yeah, but that's like the religious like version of like, I don't know, do not enter or something. You know, it's kind of like God ends here. Why would you want to go in there? It's like
beware of demons.
Yes, right. It's like Portal to Hell is in here.
Yeah. Well, it's not a subtle movie. Like,
Yeah.
there's
But then you have like that like lady being like pulled into there. That whole part is like a little confusing because she's
the
like,
intro. Okay, yeah.
Like she's like saying that the one lady, like, you know, like she needs a vessel, so you know what you have to do. But then she basically goes in there to die and ends up giving the nun or the demon thing a vessel to live through, and then that's why she's haunting everyone for the entirety of the movie.
Yeah, like, what is the key for?
The key was to open up, I guess, the area that had the
reliquary,
the holy hand grenade, essentially.
Right. Yes.
That's exactly what it looks
because,
like.
Well, I feel like the nun goes in there on a mission to kind of. Did she go in with the key and then she kind of like tosses it back out to the other woman as she's about to die or something?
And that's when she says the part about like,
So she's kind
you know
of
what you have to do. She
Right.
She needs a vessel, but she's the vessel, and she's.
Does she become the vessel?
Is she the vessel? I thought the
'Cause that's
nun
how- that's
already
how-
existed.
I don't think so. I
At
think
that
it's just the
point.
demon.
Oh, okay.
Again, this movie does not do a whole lot with rules, which is one of our always our biggest complaints with horror movies is what are the rules, and like
Yeah.
like at one point they try to explain it like it's like an evil force or whatever, and it takes the image of a nun to like confuse us or whatever, and
Right.
Yeah, because it would, or it takes whatever, it's like a Bogart or whatever, Bogart in Harry Potter. Like it's just whatever you're afraid of. So for the priest, it's like the little French kid that died or whatever. And I don't know. That's not as much fun as if you just kind of.
Well, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because then for all the nuns, it's a nun. It's like, are you scared of yourself or?
Well, that was why, I feel like there could be such a great version of this movie where
It's kind of a cool story and premise.
This woman who's about to become a nun. If it was just her and the monastery and the evil nun, and you get rid of like the priest and the French guy, and even like the demon who's like kind of, sort of inherently male, like because you could have this great because the best horror movies are sort of like they work on like a metaphorical level,
Right.
And you could have like here's a woman who's about to become a nun, and the thing that she's most afraid of is like an old nun, like a woman who's given her whole life
Right.
and youth to this.
That was something that I thought was
thing.
really underutilized. Is you have this like great setup of like everyone keeps asking like, oh, you haven't taken your vows yet, and like
Right.
I just wanted this movie needs more characters.
Yeah.
Because like you have the priest who's like not really asking a lot of questions. You have the other guy who just wants to like get in her pants. Like I wanted her to have a conversation with someone.
Yeah, the other
and
nuns
somebody's
could have been like
why
more
didn't you
bigger
take your vows
characters.
yet? Like I feel like there's room to instill some like doubt there and like have this question that's unanswered at the beginning of the movie about faith or about devotion to God. It's a weird territory to go in a horror movie because then the resolution would have to be like coming to God or something, and that's kind of like the anti-horror movie message.
Right, but God is like the good guy too. It could work.
Either way, there should have been some sort of doubt or something, and then you have room for a resolution at the end of the movie, and then it's much more meaningful when she's like, I think I want to take my vows now. You know, like she's got these doubts before, and now that she's come face to face with like evil, she knows that there is a battle for good and evil going on the planet, and she's like, yeah, I'm ready to join the good guys.
It almost seems like they're doing the work where she is this kind of young and spunky kind of not a nun yet, but like in that religious school or something where they're like, oh, like the older nun says like dinosaurs don't exist, and she's like, well, like, do you really believe her? Kind of like, or just like like God hid the bones here like to test our faith kind of, and then she kind of is like testing the children kind of like she seems like this. I don't know, we never revisit like these like this kind of like they seem like they're doing really great work
it's a
at
good
the beginning.
setup,
Yes.
and there's something missing in the middle. I mean, there's opportunity with the Frenchie character.
Yeah,
like,
right?
if you are like a young girl considering essentially taking this vow of like abstinence and
Right.
retreating to this nunnery somewhere, like a beautiful like French Canadian man might be something that might make you go like, oh, maybe, do I really want to like swear this off forever? Like,
Right.
maybe it's not time to start now. And there's this like hot hunk here with an axe that he's swinging around, like. But like they had those conversations very one-sided, where it's just kind of like him hitting on her, and she just kind of like sits there like, like okay,
Right.
taking these awkward compliments, and I don't know. There's a lot of just like underutilized stuff in this setup. Like it's kind of set up nicely, and then it goes nowhere.
And I was kind of on and off about Frenchie. He starts off as kind of like this Pepe Le Pew character, kind of. But like he does, and then like near the back half he turns into like Brendan Fraser light, like from like The Mummy or something, where he's running around with like like a shotgun and a shovel and everything, and he kind of does have these like whoa, like
I think
like reaction scenes.
I think he makes you want there to be more characters in this movie, because
Right,
you have like her who she's kind of just like, I mean, she's got a little bit of personality in the beginning of the movie, but the scenarios they put her in later on, like there's no personality. Like she's not making
the
jokes with
characters
anyone.
aren't good.
She's not in contrast with anyone because she's on the same team as the priest, and they're really only in contrast to him. And it's like you need like one or two more characters. Like you needed the actual nuns in there for them to be like the priest and her to be like the middle ground, where it's like there's too far reserved. That's like the nuns that are here, and they're in this like ancient Romanian castle, and it's very real to them. So they're not even thinking about fucking like the French guy is, and he's a little too concerned with that, and that makes them more reasonable. But whereas they just come across as boring, and Frenchie is like the only one who has any like life to him in this movie.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like agree with him being like a little womanizer or whatever, you're still kind of like, well, he's making jokes. Right. Nobody else is making jokes in this movie. He's the sole source of like comedic relief.
Yeah, it is. He's very silly. I don't remember The Conjuring being like kind of as silly as that. Because this is just sort of my preference in horror movies, but I would have preferred a much slower build, a more suspenseful movie. Like this movie is kind of like, it did almost feel like, especially towards the end, it kind of gets into like Van Helsing territory where it's just sort of like a weird medieval action movie. Yeah. And the priest is like not an interesting
He's not
character.
Yeah.
Or like a very compelling like performance. And even the nun, the woman who played the young nun, it wasn't like a great cast. I don't know. It was like it just wasn't. It wasn't as good as it could have been.
I think they needed more people to play off of, and like there needed more dialogue in this movie. Like there's so many times where they waste so much time. I mean, in their eyes, they're not wasting it because that's the bread and butter of their type of horror movie. But it's just like her or him walking around with like slowly with a lantern and like what's down there, and then the camera turns around and you can see what's behind them, and they look up and you see whatever, and it's like, I know that's part of a horror movie, but you also need like conversations in between that, and like for so much. Like, there's so few characters, and then they all split up. Like, they take the Frenchie out of the equation. He goes back to the town.
Yeah, he's gone
Big
for a long
mistake.
time.
I mean, I know they wanted the reveal of him coming back and sort of being the hero.
Right.
But, like, when you only have 3 characters, they should all be there.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Like, when she sort of actually goes into the convent and you realize that there are other nuns in there. Because at that point, you're just assuming, like,
but then
there's
that
no one in
turns out
this
to
place.
be...
But like that was if they had gotten to that much earlier,
yeah.
Because everything before that felt kind of just like treading water. And there's also, I do think like the opening scene was kind of fun, but you give away a lot of the mystery by like revealing so quickly that there's like, although I guess if this is in this cinematic universe where there are like demons and stuff, but I don't know. I just a slower build, more mystery, like just trying to figure out what the nuns are doing and stuff.
To have an opening scene where the characters know that there are demons.
Yeah,
like wouldn't it be better to have us where they're discovering that there are demons?
again,
if it's like even if you still
there's
want to be in
for
this nunnery, and you can start off with like a couple nuns and they're like chatting about like, oh yeah, that like dark hallway, like that's all baloney. Like that's not real. And then you hear like a knock on the door or something, and like bring us like they almost start like too in media res. It's like the demons are getting powerful again, and we got to go do something about it. Where it should have been us discovering that the demons are getting powerful again.
Again, they're even sloppily doing the work of kind of they call upon. I think it's Pastor Burke and Sister Irene. That Sister Irene is like I think the Vatican. Sometimes I forget about that scene. Like it's kind of ridiculous that the Vatican is in like this movie. Not totally.
I kind of liked that part. I thought that was more. That was like more
the politics,
and like the slow build towards like this movie just jumps right into like scare, and like so much of it doesn't feel earned. Like, and it's all like theater scares where it's just loud noises, or you're not able to see over this way, so you can't see that the nun is running at her and she's gonna grab her by the throat or whatever. Like, and if you're gonna have a movie like that, then I appreciate more like slow build in terms of like have a few more of these scenes, like because I also felt like they didn't explain a lot with that Vatican scene, because they're just kind of like, all right, you're gonna go here, and he doesn't know why, and it's like, well. Like, if there are no nuns left at the nunnery, and the Frenchman who found the nun didn't actually talk to anyone at the nunnery, and he just put her in the whatever. Then like what? How does? I mean, I guess maybe the Vatican knows that there's this like gateway they've been guarding there. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. You would think they would tell him more about it rather than just being like,
it is.
All right,
They're really going into this blind. He like gets her, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm not from Romania."
You
and
think they
like,
send more reinforcements too if it was like
right.
this big deal?
Yeah. Can you and like some random girl
person
who's
who's not actually a
nun
nun yet.
can you guys go fight the devil? But yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, there's like some setup and there's not a lot of like payoff where it is kind of like these two strangers kind of have to go fight the fucking portal to hell. But it is kind of, I mean, it kind of like comes down to like, oh, well, I'm like the kind of paranormal expert that the Vatican goes to, and you had visions as a child, kind of. And I guess the Vatican knows about that, kind of, you know? So we're going to pair you guys together. I don't know. There wasn't a lot of big reveals. There's also not a lot of, I don't know, like maybe questioning of faith, or there needed to be some sort of faith-driven arc.
Someone needs to
too.
have doubts, and then this makes them believe. And it could have been Frenchie if you didn't want to have it be the nun. Like,
nobody ever says they want to go home either, really. Like, this girl is like, wow, I was just plucked from being a teacher, and now I'm, you know...
Yeah, in the throes of hell.
Yeah. But let's just do, like, rapid fire, just, like, scenes. There's just so much to... I mean, there's so many scenes. Like, for example, I actually really enjoyed the kind of, like, I was just telling Sabri about this. She's walking in right now. But the set piece of kind of like the bells on the grave from like leftover from like the plague or whatever. Somebody and then somehow this guy gets buried alive. I didn't understand how that happened. I mean, again, it's a horror movie.
This
but
movie is nothing in terms of rules, and like,
right.
I hate the fact, like, again, like I think this movie needed a bigger cast because you have all these scares, but the demon or whatever it is attacking them doesn't actually hurt anybody. And it's like that. Well, then, like after like 5 or 6 of these scares, you think they'd just be like, okay, like it's not very powerful or something, you know? Like how many times do they each of them run into it and nothing actually happens to them?
Well, yeah.
And the one time we think something's happening to her, it's in her head when we think the pentagram's getting carved into her.
That's like the that's kind of like the grave thing where you know, he puts the Father Burke or whatever like in a grave while he's still alive, but he doesn't like stop the bell really, like,
and he leaves a shovel there.
yeah it's just, it's like kind of weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna kill off the priest, and I was excited about that.
Oh, I thought they were gonna kill off Frenchie like ASAP.
I thought, that
the
also,
minute
they could have killed them off, and then it just kind of, it could have, because they're like the two more traditional masculine heroes in a movie like this. I thought this was gonna be like kind of a feminist movie, which it isn't really. It isn't really about anything. But I
it's
thought
not
it
even
was
not
gonna be,
feminist.
It's
just
it was
not
going to
very
be
good.
like, young nun versus old nun. The old nun hates her for her youth, and
Right.
for she still has all this potential. The old nun sacrificed her life for nothing. The young nun's afraid of, it's the modern world, and she's got to go into a cloister to just be with all these bitter old women. There's so much material there.
Young nun's like, you ruined the economy, you fucking baby.
But again,
well, I guess that's really the young nun based on the time period now.
Yeah, but you do think there would be some sort of, I was like waiting for some sort of struggle between this kind, this kind of,
and
like,
then it isn't even
old-timey-
really a nun. That's what annoyed me. Also, like it's just a demon, Valak, the defiler, the profane, Marquis of Snakes.
Oh, did you think it was gonna be like an actual nun?
Like
a person?
not a living person, but like
the spirit of a nun or something.
A female nun entity, not just a demon in the form of a creepy nun.
Yeah. I mean, we are in spoiler territory, by the way. I forgot to say that, but I do think we get some like really. I mean, again, just because this movie really has nothing else, we kind of. It's just kind of everything else is a transition to the next set piece. But there are a lot of really cool set pieces down in the catacombs. you kind of have like these nuns standing in formation with bags over, like
that was cool,
like bloodstained bags over their head.
Yeah,
that's pretty creepy.
I like when they're all praying. They get kind of like shot to different areas of the room,
and that's all in her head, which is weird.
I loved the first scene when they first kind of get into the main church area, and they and it's like a double throne, and they walk around to the back of it, and like the abbess is there, like completely cloaked in
that was weird
a veil, which is very creepy.
Yes,
covered veiled women are creepy,
like on a throne,
and or just ghostly. No judgment, but so that was cool. I liked, just like it was good use of medieval sort of art and imagery. It's kind of interesting because this movie is sort of Gothic, like it's kind of in the Gothic tradition.
Definitely.
And Gothic literature, sort of one of the elements of Gothic literature is it's often very critical of Catholic clergy because it's a literary movement from emerges in England in the late 18th century, so it comes from this sort of Protestant Enlightenment place that was very sort of viewed Catholicism and just sort of Southern Europe in general as being kind of decadent and fallen, and you would have a lot of like corrupt bishops and like Spanish inquisitors who are like, sadomasochistic and like lustful nuns or evil nuns or something.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting, not from that angle, but I was waiting for there to be something that was going to be more critical, like whether it was
because you think it's right there.
With him failing Daniel, maybe there's something there, like maybe it's like something where he didn't give the boy medical attention when he really needed it, and he was relying too much on spiritual things. Or I also thought there was going to be something with the Vatican, like maybe there was some monetary purpose to protect this cloister instead, because that's sort of a big criticism of
and just there's secretiveness, and they're always covering things up, and there's it's a no better time to criticize the church.
Again, the whole dinosaur thing, I thought if you're fighting a fucking demon, you think again, there'd be some sort of battle of faith and, kind of like, I don't know.
Well, that's kind of the interesting thing, because this movie is not, at its heart, it is a part of this exorcism genre.
Right.
The exorcism genre, sort of unique among genres, is actually very kind of pro-Catholic clergy.
Right.
Because it's sort of, this whole genre sort of assumes that there is a God. There is a Jesus, there is the devil. Praying to God and Jesus will beat the devil. These anointed clerics are like the only people that can really do this. It's very weird in a Hollywood movie to have, other than it's like a Mel Gibson movie.
It works
almost.
so well in a Hollywood movie because the rules are built into that in terms of like the demon has a weakness. It's crosses and holy water and stuff.
It definitely
like that.
works as a.
That's what I kind of didn't like in
as
this,
a genre.
is that like they have all these scenes of them like turning upside down the crosses, and I'm like,
oh, that's a Conjuring go-to though. That
right,
happens in
but I'm
every
like,
movie.
well, like why are the demons like? Why would they want to stay in like a nunnery if like clearly the crosses don't do anything to them, And then it's just kind of like, well, then what are the rules? Like, how do you beat? Like, why does holy water from the blood of Christ work, but imagery of the cross doesn't work against them, and they're able to like use it against people? Like, he tries to like light. I guess he does actually light that thing on fire at one point, but I think it's the gun that kills it, not the cross in that one scene.
Yeah, he's got some sort of fighting cross, and then I guess maybe he's got fighting cross, and then
he's got cross nunchucks,
and then there's like decorative crosses, which are like, I guess, a part of the environment that just shows it shifting to like something evil is coming in there, or demonic. I don't totally understand those rules of like what is what.
It just seems like the type of movie where those type of things should be cleaner, maybe, like, right? Like,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, there should be established rules and everything.
I mean, it does seem like they just went for like what's creepy. Like the cross turning over is like, that's just creepy. Like, there's
I just pictured like a writer's room of like, how do we make church scary. You know, like the entire thing is like very just, it's just like religious imagery turned scary, you know?
I don't like
the crucifixes with Jesus headless are like those are pretty creepy. I don't think I've seen those a lot, before.
Yeah, they broke a lot of Jesus heads in this movie. I don't like in like modern horror now how like I feel like they all like the biggest example I can think of, and I did actually like that movie, but I feel like I don't know if that started a trend or if the trend was started before that. But like Insidious and not so much Sinister, but definitely like Insidious 2, where I feel like we have like horror like ADD, where like we can't focus on like one villain. Like I thought this should have just been like you have this pretty creepy iconic villain and a nun. Why are we bringing in like snakes and
get Daniel out of there?
Other nuns and Daniel, like the Daniel part, like I didn't think was all that creepy, other than like the cheap theater scares of like loud boom, neck crack, loud neck crack, you know. Whereas like the nun, you can just look at her, and like the creepiest scene with the nun is like when she's just like slowly coming down the hallway, and we can just see sort of like the lights of her eyes and some of the highlights on her face, like. And like that part is cool, and they've created this iconic villain, but then they just kind of go to these like crutches of like, well, what about like the creepy little kid and like the snake coming out of the whatever.
Yeah, it's too many things.
It becomes very horror movies have become very video game-esque, where it's kind of like
this boss and then this boss.
Yes, you got to fight until you find the final boss kind of thing. Where it is like you have kind of these like, you know, nun henchmen, and
it allows them to do like, I mean, I guess I know maybe why they do it, and I don't agree with it at all, is because it allows them to sort of like turn the volume up to 10 from the very get-go, because it's not, you know, the nun attacking them full force every time. It's, even though it technically is the same demon, but it's like, you know, Daniel in this scene, and then the other nun in this scene, and then the snakes in this scene, and then the whole army of fake nuns in this scene. Whereas in like in another more traditional horror movie, you know, like you would kind of build up to a crescendo of like, you know, he's fucking with you a little bit. He's knocking the pictures off the wall. He's turning the crosses upside down.
Yeah.
And then the next scene, it's a little bit more violent. And then eventually when we get to the climax, like there's actual physical harm being done, and you're scared for your life.
Yeah. It's so much more effective.
Right? Yeah, it's got to be a lot less jump scares and a lot more scares of just kind of like, nope, like, you know, like those kind of scares where it's kind of like, that's not how I left her, and it's just kind of like, nope, no.
Yeah, I thought that was actually,
here,
I did like that scene in the freezer. Like there was a good like ambiance there, and it wasn't like a cheap scare. It was just like it sent chills up your spine when he says like, yeah, there's another thing, I didn't leave her in that position. Like,
right. Yeah,
that's creepy. They needed more stuff like that in there,
and that could bring a better build up. And there's even stuff like in better horror movies, there is stuff that's like, I don't know. There's something that like went a little too fast, too soon, like that, like kind of first night where he gets buried alive, kind of. But I don't like mind like crazy stuff happening in the first night where it's kind of like, I don't know, like I just heard somebody walking around and I followed them out of the house, kind of, you know. Like I don't mind stuff like that, but again, when there's just kind of
well, the first night, like they should have been like, okay, no doubt this place is haunted to some degree, or there's an evil force here. Like you would think they would like leave and be like, okay, confirmed, we need like backup, you know? Like
he calls into the Vatican.
We need reinforcements.
Confirmed, it is haunted.
Yeah. I had another point I was going to make, and it just completely escaped me. Just like when you have these, again, when you have like so few characters, like the fact that they're not getting killed off in a horror movie is kind of problematic for me. Like even if the demon's not going to kill them, like I haven't seen The Conjuring, but from what I've heard from my girlfriend from the other Conjuring movies, is like a big thing with that demon is driving people to kill themselves.
Yeah.
Because I guess there are well-established rules in the first Conjuring movie where like if you know its name, you can like cast it out and it can't hurt you and stuff like that. And you know, like it's really just trying to drive you insane enough that you're going to kill yourself, and that's where it gets its power over you. Like,
right.
But like in this one, like it's just kind of like the demons like keep attacking them, but they can't actually do anything. Like no one really gets hurt besides him getting locked underground. But again, like we said, like there's all these escape routes available to him. And it's like then like even after all these like close brushes with the demon, like he's still like every time like something happens, he's just kind of like, oh, let me go over here and investigate that. And, like,
Right.
Like if you have multiple characters, like you can kind of spread out those scares if you want to use all those set pieces, so that like one thing happens to one of them, and then we go to another room and something else has happened to that person, and it makes more sense that this second character might see the bell being dragged on the ground and go chase it, whereas like the priest at that point in the movie, I'm like, you've seen enough shit, like what's gonna happen if you follow that, like
Right.
wait until you have like a game plan or something, like you just start to believe the actions of these characters less when there's so few of them, and they just keep doing dumb things. Like when he goes towards the veiled nun, the fake nun, and it's like trying to like stick his hand in there. I'm like, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, it's very easy to anticipate
if
everything.
that's the first time that character is encountering something,
right,
we're a little more forgiving of that. We're like, okay, like he has no idea what's going on.
Right.
By that point, he's been locked underground in like a grave. At that point, he's been chased around by like a little demon shit boy. Like he knows something's going on. Why are you going and sticking your hand in the veil of a like creepy nun?
Right. He's also like their fucking Agent Mulder of of like
I want to believe.
Yes, of like spooky stuff in the Vatican. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird to see something like this. Have we done like a movie like this kind of?
No, we've done horror movies, but they've been like the really good ones, or like we did like Don't Breathe.
Yeah, which Don't Breathe is still better.
I guess
than
the closest would maybe be Blair Witch, but that's like found footage and it's kind of a different genre than this.
No, that's what I thought of. Yeah, but again, this movie this year at least, this season, we've reviewed Hereditary, which is like fantastic masterclass horror, and then what is the John Krasinski one? A Quiet Place.
A Quiet Place, yeah.
Which again, I didn't like at the time, but I mean now in retrospect, I'm like,
this is what
it's at least, at least it's like a very basic kind of horror movie. This, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I don't know. Again, I didn't really. Where do you guys like as we wrap this up? Like, where do you guys stand on horror movies? Like, are you a big horror movie person, or do you not?
No. Okay.
But
I don't. Right. It's not because I dislike them. I'd mostly enjoy them when I watch them. I don't really seek them out though. But I want them to. I guess I have kind of higher standards. Like I want them to be about something.
Right.
I want them to be well done. But I like a good kind of a historical horror movie. Mm-hmm. Like
did you get excited when you saw that this was like a 1950s
kind
of? Okay.
I like that. I like because it's sort of combining different things. I was so pissed when there was like a creepy radio in this. Because it's like
we're supposed to be getting away from that.
It's just like, come on, this is like medieval shit.
Yeah,
but like
that was creepy when he shined the flashlight on it and it stopped.
Oh yeah,
my whole theater like gasped when that happened.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, like the others, that Nicole Kidman with the on the Channel Islands,
the sun allergic kids.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. And I like maybe higher concept stuff. But
definitely,
there's just, there's so many bad horror movies,
Oh, it's almost like, I don't know. That's just become like a trope almost, like bad horror movies.
When they're good, they can be so good. Like,
they can be transcendent.
I don't like camp really at all. Mm-hmm. I don't like things that are like not what they are supposed to be, I guess. Or I guess so many horror movies are supposed to be camp. But I don't enjoy things that are just like kind of schlocky. Like I want them to like really...
I wish this was this could have used like a good injection of schlock.
Well, it's like kind of stuck in between.
It could have been more, like it could have just been like a straight B movie.
It's like a little B movie-ish, I think, in the first scene, and then it like goes into like serious, like, like there's not really any like humor going on for a while, and you've got like, the Vatican and this sort of like, bureaucracy of religion and stuff like that. And that starts to remind me of like Mothman Prophecies or like movies like that, where there's no camp, there's no even really humor. It's just a straight up like drama horror movie.
Or like The Omen. I thought it would be more like The Omen.
But then with the introduction of like Frenchie, it starts to get funnier, and then there's like some parts where there's just some actual like physical punchlines, like, you know, with like him like when he like first fires like the shotgun, like that's kind of like a funny in like a heroic kind of way.
Right.
That starts to feel like you said like The Mummy or something like a little campier. But then like the other two characters like aren't keeping up with that, you know, like they're not really fitting into. You're smirking at me now.
I don't know. I just started laughing about Unintentional Mummy again. Just
This summer, starring Brendan Fraser, Unintentional Mummy. Yeah, I don't know. When horror movies are good, they can be really, really good. Like, you know, my favorite movie this year is still probably Hereditary. My favorite movie from last year or 2 years ago was The Witch. When that came out, but then there can be so many.
Yeah, The Witch was dope.
Yeah,
I just want there to be like a The Witch every year, not or you know like something like that's like that takes the, I don't know,
that slow,
take it
slow
seriously.
build, slow
that
burn.
director's doing something now with like Robert Pattinson and what is his name? Who's playing Van Gogh now?
Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. No, William H. Macy. Isn't it William H. Macy? No, William H. Macy. No, Willem Dafoe. Yes.
Willem Dafoe is playing Vincent Van Gogh.
Now I want to imagine William H. Macy and all of Willem Dafoe's. And there was a firefight. I think he's doing. I can't remember if it got put on the back burner or if they're back into it. He was supposed to be doing Nosferatu for the longest time.
Yeah, I think that got canceled a while ago.
I thought I remember hearing that he was back.
Oh, really?
on it, though. Yeah. I think he might just be doing something else first. I could be wrong though.
The Witch director or Willem Dafoe?
The Witch director.
Was Willem
Dafoe
Dafoe
played Nosferatu
Yeah, right,
in that movie
in that-
that's about the making of
Yeah.
Nosferatu.
William H. Macy. But yeah, you want to get into some finger ratings?
Surely. Why don't you pull up the Facebook stuff? I think we got a few comments on this one.
Okay.
On review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 28% based on 102 reviews and an average rating of 4.5 out of 10. That might actually be higher now that we're partially through the weekend. The site's critical consensus reads, The Nun boasts strong performances, I don't know about that, spooky atmospherics, and a couple decent set pieces, but it sins.
Nice. Because God.
Include inconsistent...
Because God, right, guys?
Reviewers are often clever.
Include inconsistent logic and narrative slackness.
Yeah, like I say in all of the intros to these episodes now, we do, I mean, you can like us on Facebook at our page where we advertise all the new episodes that come out, but just also we have How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up, the Facebook group, and we don't really push our agenda on there. We don't really push it's just more of a forum where everyone talks about movies and movie news and movie memes. Anyway, we're talking about The Nun. Nick Ocello said it was nunderwhelming. And Rowan Court, Mike's girlfriend, said, how many fingers do I give it? None. A lot of nun puns.
Rowan's got to cool it. She's trying to be funnier than me in the comments lately, and I don't appreciate it.
Chill out, Rowan.
This is my podcast, babe, all right? Back the fuck off. Who's down to start this? Let me get the spreadsheet up.
I'll start it just because I don't have much else to say. So again, I'm glad I saw this, and I kind of wanted to see what was going on in the Conjuring universe and what was happening and everything. I'd love to. Again, we're reviewing this, I guess like right after it came out. Just came out. So we really don't know what it's doing at the box office. Again, all the other Conjuring movies seem to average above $300 million.
I think it was projected like 45 to 50 million opening weekend.
So they're going to make that money back. And they've already, like the other movies have already paid for like the next 3 or 4 movies. Mm-hmm. So they're going to keep making these movies. Yeah, so that's just interesting. I'm glad we got to explore this corner of movies that come out over the course of a year. And I mean, again, they're pretty regular releases. I think they skipped a year.
There was one last year, right?
Yeah, they skipped some year. I don't remember what year it was, but it seems like there's one that's going to come out around this time every year now, for the next 2 years at least. There's some kind of original, again, love the imagery in this movie. I think there's some like kind of original stuff in that, but again, this also feels like the amalgamation of just different horror movies that I've seen before. Yeah, I had a similar complaint. I feel like we kind of already reached that, like where it is kind of like, I almost feel like the Nun made like more of an appearance in this movie. It just kind of just shows up at the end and chokes Frenchie. I don't know. I think you can go to the Wikipedia page and kind of like read the description of this movie and kind of be like, okay, this sounds like good. This sounds like this. I don't know. There's some ideas in here that could have made a good movie. But obviously, if you've been listening to us talk for the past hour or two, this was not a good movie. I think I'm going to give it... I think I'm going to give it either 1 or 1.5. I don't know where to lean with this one. Because, like, part of me is kind of like, well, these are the Conjuring movies. Like, this is kind of how they are. I'm going to give it 1, though. It's just, if I gave A Quiet Place, which was another horror movie this year, a 2.5, I think this is definitely a 1.5 below that. Yeah, I wish there was a clearer plot. I wish there were clearer character arcs. I wish they did more with the characters. I didn't realize I needed more characters until you said that. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could have got, even as I walked out of the theater with the kind of like sold out Conjuring crowd, some guy in front of me was on the phone with his girlfriend, and he's like, "It just wasn't as scary." I was like, that was his review. He's like, it just, like, you know, like the people who aren't even
Why are you listening to us for an hour and a half? Just get that guy on the podcast.
Right? No, yeah. It was just like he did not like I'm saying, like, I think a lot of these people are, like, I was, like, looking at some, like, reviews of this movie on, like, YouTube and everything, and in the comments, like I said, I don't know if I said this off camera or on camera, but I was, like, people are like, I don't care if this movie is getting bad reviews. I want to go and have a good time and be scared, kind of. But this guy, whose top priority is being scared, said it wasn't that scary, you know? And I think, like, that drops it like even like a little more. So I'm gonna go with 1 finger.
Yeah, I think I would echo your rating at 1 finger as well. Like I said, I think there's a lot that's left on the table in terms of, I won't call it great, but I think there's an adequate setup to this movie, and they just don't utilize anything. Like that's what kind of the point I was making when we read the IMDb description of like a priest with a haunted past. Like, yeah, he technically does, but it doesn't mean anything for the movie because it doesn't go anywhere. So it's just kind of like a character quirk.
His past, he's like a demon hunting priest who just survived like World War II, and his past is like not even that haunted. It's just like that one dude,
one boy. That
like this
failed.
Guy should just be like, he should be like a huge dick, you know, like just like staring dead-eyed at everything.
Yeah, and you would think that like if you're, and then again the other sort of unfinished storyline is the actual nun in this movie, or the almost nun, and you would think that there's an inherent storyline about faith and like where she stands with that, and you would think that like even as like a priest he would be a good candidate to be someone who was sort of, because of all this stuff that he's supposedly seen and has shaken his faith, like maybe he's not pushing her towards like being a nun, you know. That'd be kind of interesting to have a priest who's
that would
like,
be
is
better.
this really what you want to do with your life? Like,
if he's kind of like shining his cross and he's like, you know, it's not all it's cracked up.
polishing his
weapon cross. I could tell you a few stories that might change your mind.
Sharpening it.
Yeah,
it's a blade sharpener.
For the record,
I'm gonna get stabbed in the dick with this later.
for the record, as much as we do make fun of these characters, I do like the casting of these. I mean, maybe the Father Burke or whatever a little less, but I love her casting. I think they didn't give her enough to do. She seems like really great in that establishing scene.
She's great in the scene with the classroom.
Right, yeah.
But then I think when you don't give her any characters to interact with, and she has to sort of retreat into this like very reserved, like nun. Like they need to give her like she need more scenes with Frenchie. Frenchie shouldn't have left in this movie. Like, you know, there should have been that sort of push and pull of like he's trying to get in her pants and she's, you know, wondering if she wants to be devoted to God or whatnot. And, you know,
were they trying to imply that she grows up to be
that's
the other
thing.
one, since they're like sisters?
It's like a complaint that I shouldn't be able to have about this movie, but
They
I
look
do.
like
They
each
look
other.
so alike, Vera Farmiga and Thaisa Farmiga.
And then
you
at
have
the end,
Vera
when they're watching
from-
their like video.
from The Conjuring, and then they show her in this movie.
Yes.
But they're not supposed to be the same character, as far as I can tell.
Right.
I was like, that seems underutilized. Like, if we're gonna have a Conjuring prequel movie, you're gonna use Thaisa, like, have her fucking be the younger version of the Warren or something like
Yeah,
that.
that seems like a missed. Again, I think that's like 20 years later. There's a seminar, and she's like watching the footage of the Warrens like attempting to exorcise Frenchie or whatever.
I guess they're
right?
trying to explain that the demon jumped out of Frenchie onto her, and that's why the nun's been haunting her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, all that, and like the biggest thing being that it's scary, but it's only like theater scary. It's scary because you're watching it with like Dolby surround sound speakers, booming, and like there's so many parts where like I would just be sitting there cringing because I'm like, I know that there's gonna be like ear-busting
There's some
sound
masterful tension in this
like,
too.
But it's not tension. It's not
yes,
earned tension. It's not earned scares. It's just me knowing that like they're going to blow my fucking ears out in a couple of seconds, and that's why I'm going to be scared.
Yeah,
and that's why like there are like one or two scenes. Like I think that's why I feel like there's so much left on the table, because you have this great character design in this nun, which is it's like having like a movie about a scary clown and not really using like just the appearance and the nature of the clown. And it'd be like having like It, but like, I mean, they do kind of do it in It. They go into a bunch of like scary toys and stuff like that rather than using the clown for the entirety of it. But they still do utilize Pennywise in that movie, you know, where they have scenes where he's like in the gutter and you can just see like his eyes and his teeth and he's being creepy. And like they should use more like that from the nun.
Yeah.
And we didn't need the Daniel character at all. And,
the nun doesn't even smack anyone with a ruler.
yeah, and then like a lot of and a lot of the scares are like crosses turning upside down and like stuff breaking off of like crucifixes, and or the scare will just be like, and she goes into the hallway and you had no idea she was there, and like there's so much more to this like beautifully designed horror character, and they didn't utilize it at all. So
There's a lot of metal music video imagery.
so one finger for me, I will agree.
I'm gonna give it 2 fingers because I do like the nun creature. I like the title. Probably not gonna watch it again, but I think I might watch The Conjuring 2.
I would like to see The Conjuring too,
just to get that initial nun shot. And I do like Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say it's Thaisa in this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just not. It just wasn't as good as it should be. And I think, I don't know. There's just so much like rich material here that I think could have been better utilized if they just kind of thought about it more. But it does feel more like like kind of a not a cynical cash grab, but like, you know, I think they felt like they just had to knock down this one wall to have an easy movie.
Open up the Nun trilogy.
It feels like a movie that was made a year after the last Conjuring movie came out. Like,
Yes.
it seems like a pretty easy movie to make.
There's
not really any extras. There's 3 people in the cast and I guess some horror actors.
When Deagler asked about like when or where they filmed or whatever I was just reading, I was like, it was like principal photography started. I was like, that was months ago. Like,
that was fast.
I forget when it was.
I think the budget was, what did it say? Like
it was
22 million for the
May
budget.
2017. No, that wasn't months ago, but it was still, I don't know.
Anyway, that's going to come out to 1.3 repeating, which will round down to 1 finger. us here officially on the podcast.
P.S. I would love to have seen all the other, like, that reminded me of, like, I would have loved to see, like, all the other Conjuring movies or whatever and rank this amongst them. If you guys want to school us on the Conjuring universe, just because I know we have fans that like the Conjuring, go ahead in the comments below. I'll definitely, if you have films in the Conjuring, franchise that you want us to watch, I'm listening. I'll go back and watch them. So
and, join the Facebook
yes,
group. How many
definitely.
fingers am I holding? The Facebook group. Start a thread for ranking the Conjuring universe movies.
Definitely.
It's what it's there for.
I'll watch
Movie
The Conjuring
discussion.
too. I'm not going to watch the Annabelle movies. Dolls aren't scary. They're little. Like, how
He's
scary.
not going to watch it because he's not scared of them.
They're
He's
not-
definitely not
They're
scared
not
of
big
them.
enough to be scary. They're not good movie villains.
Even if there's one in the corner of my room, on a stool, in a corner, I'm not scared of it.
I'm not afraid anymore.
Why my grandmom's ashes in it? I don't know.
That's definitely not the same chair I put it down on before, but I'm not scared. Anyway.
Why did I wake up and it was spooning me?
Dude,
Is it in love with me?
I don't even care. If I had a doll that was mysteriously moving around my apartment, it's still just a doll, Like,
Until it like slits your throat while you're sleeping. A lot less.
Anyway, let's get out of this episode. Once again, you can check out Michael Deagler's stuff, author Michael Deagler, at michaeldeagler.com, Deagler. And you can find all our stuff at howmanyfingerspodcast.com. Tune in last week for Crazy Rich Asians with Ross Wiseman, and next week for Black Klansman with Jordan Weinrich. We'll see you guys then. Goodbye.